Welcome to Crime Story with Camila, where we dive deep into the most chilling and mysterious true crime cases. If you love real-life crime stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so you never miss an update. Your support helps us bring you the most in-depth investigations and untold stories. Welcome to today's episode, where we uncover the chilling case of Meaghan Louise Rose, a young woman whose mysterious death in 1997 was initially ruled a suicide. For nearly 3 decades, her family fought tirelessly, believing there was more to the story. And now, after years of uncertainty, a shocking breakthrough has emerged. A man has been arrested, Meaghan's former partner, Keith Lees. What led authorities to reopen this case after all these years? What new evidence came to light? And most importantly, will justice finally be served? Join us as we take a deep dive into the Meaghan Rose cold case breakthrough, examining the crime scene, the investigation, the years of unanswered questions, and the shocking arrest that could finally bring closure to this haunting mystery. Meaghan was just 25 years old, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. She lived on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, and was known for her kind heart and strong spirit. Those who knew her described her as warm, loving, and full of life. At the time of her death, Meaghan was in a relationship with Keith Lees, a man who would later become the focus of the investigation. The two shared a home and what appeared to be a normal life. But behind closed doors, things may not have been as they seemed. It was the evening of July 18, 1997, when Meaghan Louise Rose was last seen alive. That night, she and her partner, Keith Lees, were at their home on the Sunshine Coast, but something wasn't right. Hours later, in the early morning hours, a passerby at Point Cartwright made a grim discovery. At the base of a 40-meter cliff lay the lifeless body of Meaghan Rose. Just above, near the edge of the cliff, sat a wine cask and a glass, seemingly left behind as if someone had been drinking moments before tragedy struck. When police arrived, they examined the scene and quickly leaned toward a conclusion: suicide. Meaghan had a high blood alcohol level, and investigators believed she had been intoxicated when she fell. Her death was ruled non-suspicious, and just like that, the case was closed. But was it really that simple? Meaghan's family immediately questioned the official ruling. They knew her well. They knew she had plans for the future, dreams she wanted to chase, and no history of suicidal thoughts. Something didn't add up. More than that, there were disturbing details that authorities seemed to overlook. First, there were no clear signs that Meaghan had willingly jumped. The position of her body and the lack of a proper investigation into her injuries raised concerns. Second, witnesses later claimed to have heard loud arguments between Meaghan and Keith that night. If true, was this just another fight? Or was it something more sinister? And third, Meaghan's mother, Robin, recalled that her daughter had seemed happy and normal just days before. Why would she suddenly decide to take her own life? Despite these concerns, the authorities refused to reconsider their findings. Meaghan's death certificate stated suicide, and for years, that was the official story. But Meaghan's mother wasn't ready to accept that. She knew in her heart that the real story had yet to be uncovered. And as the years passed, new information would come to light. Information that would cast doubt on the original investigation and lead to a shocking arrest decades later. For most families, when the police close a case, that's the end of the road. But for Meaghan Rose's family, especially her mother, Robin, the fight was just beginning. From the very start, Robin refused to believe that her daughter had taken her own life. She knew Meaghan had her struggles, but nothing suggested she was suicidal. In fact, Meaghan had been making future plans that didn't align with someone who was about to end it all. But convincing the authorities to reopen the case was an uphill battle. The police had already made their ruling, and without new evidence, they saw no reason to revisit the case. Still, Robin never gave up. For more than 2 decades, she pushed for answers. She questioned the original investigation, spoke to anyone who would listen, and repeatedly urged law enforcement to take a deeper look into her daughter's death. And then, the first major breakthrough came. In 2019, after years of relentless pressure from Meaghan's family, the Queensland police launched a fresh review of the case. The Coroner's Court of Queensland agreed to re-examine the evidence, leading to an inquest into Meaghan's death. During this inquest, disturbing inconsistencies in the original investigation began to surface. The condition of Meaghan's body suggested she may not have simply fallen. Experts questioned whether the injuries were consistent with a suicide or something more violent. New witness testimonies indicated that Meaghan and Keith Lees had a history of volatile arguments, including the night she died. Forensic advancements allowed investigators to analyze old evidence in new ways, potentially uncovering details that had been overlooked in 1997. The findings were chilling. The coroner determined that Meaghan's death was not a simple case of suicide, it was suspicious. With this ruling, the police were forced to act. And then, in 2023, 26 years after Meaghan's tragic death, Justice finally seemed within reach. Authorities announced a major development in the case. Keith Lees, Meaghan's former partner, had been arrested and charged with her murder. For Meaghan's family, this was the moment they had been waiting for. The years of struggle, the unanswered questions, the frustration, all of it had finally led to an arrest. But what had changed? What new evidence had finally convinced authorities to take action? That's what we'll uncover in our next segment. For more than 2 decades, Meaghan Rose's case remained closed, labeled as a suicide. But as we've seen, her family never stopped fighting for the truth. Their persistence paid off in 2019 when authorities finally agreed to take a second look at the case. So, what led to this long overdue breakthrough? It all began when the Queensland Police's cold case investigation team conducted a formal review of Meaghan's death. This wasn't just a routine re-examination, it was a deep dive into the case with modern forensic techniques and a fresh investigative approach. One of the first things detectives noticed was how quickly the original 1997 investigation had been wrapped up. There were critical aspects that had been either overlooked or dismissed entirely. While investigators initially ruled Meaghan's death as a suicide, they never fully considered alternative explanations. The way her body was positioned and the nature of her injuries raised new concerns. Could she have been pushed? Meaghan's blood alcohol level was high at the time of her death. But was she too intoxicated to make a rational decision, or had she been deliberately incapacitated? New testimony from people close to Meaghan suggested that her relationship with Keith Lees was far from stable. Some witnesses recalled hearing heated arguments between the two on the night of her death. As detectives pieced together the puzzle, suspicions continued to grow around Keith Lees, Meaghan's former partner. He had never been officially charged in 1997, but his behavior had raised red flags. Now, with forensic advancements and new evidence coming to light, authorities believed they had enough to build a case against him. Then came the most critical moment, an official coroner's inquest. In 2021, a new coroner reviewed the case, examining both old and new evidence. The findings were shocking. The inquest determined that Meaghan Rose's death was suspicious, and that she likely did not take her own life. This ruling effectively overturned the initial conclusion of suicide and put intense pressure on the police to take action. By 2023, investigators had gathered enough evidence to make their move. In a stunning development, Queensland police arrested 51-year-old Keith Lees, charging him with Meaghan's murder. After 26 years, Meaghan's family finally had what they had been fighting for, an opportunity for justice. But what exactly did police uncover that led to the arrest? And what will happen next in the trial? We'll explore that in our next segment. The arrest of Keith Lees in 2023 was a pivotal moment in the Meaghan Rose case. But before authorities could take him into custody, they had to find him. For years, Keith Lees had lived under the radar, avoiding scrutiny as Meaghan's case remained classified as a suicide. When police reopened the investigation, he likely had no idea that he was now their prime suspect. So, where had he been all these years? After Meaghan's death in 1997, Keith moved away from the Sunshine Coast. He reportedly maintained a quiet life, steering clear of attention. He never publicly commented on Meaghan's case, nor did he appear to acknowledge the ongoing efforts of her family to get justice. While he wasn't officially a fugitive, he had managed to stay out of reach as suspicions about him grew. When Queensland police officially gathered enough evidence to charge him, they launched a search. This was not an easy process. Tracking down someone after 26 years required extensive investigative work. Detectives used a combination of forensic records, digital tracking, and witness interviews to pinpoint his location. In a coordinated operation, law enforcement successfully located and arrested Keith Lees in December 2023. At the time of his arrest, he was 51 years old and living in Toowoomba, Queensland. He was taken into custody and charged with Meaghan's murder. The news sent shockwaves through the community, especially for those who had long believed Meaghan's case was mishandled. For her family, it was a bittersweet moment. The man they had suspected for decades was finally facing justice, but it had taken far too long. Now, the focus shifted to what would happen next. Would Keith Lees confess? Would the evidence be strong enough to convict him? The stage was set for a courtroom battle that could finally bring closure to a case that had haunted Meaghan's family for over 2 decades. In our next segment, we'll dive into the evidence that led to his arrest and what it could mean for the upcoming trial. In December 2023, Queensland police arrested Keith Lees for the alleged murder of Meaghan Rose, a case that had remained unresolved for over 26 years. Lees, who had been living under an assumed identity, was apprehended at a property in Durrell, northwest of Sydney, following a public tip-off. This arrest marked a significant breakthrough in a case that had long been considered a suicide. The renewed investigation into Meaghan Rose's death began in 2022, prompted by persistent efforts from her family and new evidence that cast doubt on the original ruling. Detectives uncovered a life insurance policy taken out in Meaghan's name shortly before her death, which became valid just days before the incident, a detail that raised suspicions about the circumstances surrounding her demise. In June 2023, police questioned Lees in Victoria regarding the case. Shortly after this interaction, he disappeared, leading authorities to issue a national appeal for information on his whereabouts. Lees was spotted in Port Fairy, Victoria, on June 26, 2023, and the following day, CCTV footage captured him purchasing new clothes in Geelong and later at Shepparton train station. Despite these sightings, he managed to evade capture for several months. During this period, Lees allegedly received assistance from various organizations, including religious groups, which provided him with accommodation and support, unaware of his true identity and the allegations against him. The breakthrough came when a listener of the Australian True Crime podcast, which had featured episodes on Meaghan Rose's case, recognized Lees and provided crucial information to the police. This tip led authorities to Durrell, where Lees was living under the alias David Japaljari. Upon his arrest, it was discovered that he had been receiving government benefits and residing in subsidized housing under this false identity. Following his apprehension, Lees was extradited to Queensland to face charges related to Meaghan Rose's death. He is currently in custody, with court proceedings underway. This arrest not only signifies a pivotal moment in the pursuit of justice for Meaghan Rose, but also highlights the profound impact that public engagement and media coverage can have on solving cold cases. With Keith Lees now in custody, the focus has shifted to the courtroom, where justice for Meaghan Rose will finally be put to the test. But what can we expect from the legal proceedings? Keith Lees was officially extradited to Queensland in early 2024, where he faced his first court appearance. At this initial hearing, prosecutors laid out the murder charge, emphasizing the new forensic evidence and witness testimonies that led to his arrest. Lees, however, remained silent and showed no visible reaction to the charges against him. The prosecution has built a strong case based on several key factors. Advanced forensic techniques reanalyzed Meaghan's injuries, contradicting the original suicide ruling and suggesting foul play. A life insurance policy in Meaghan's name became active shortly before her death, raising questions about whether money was a factor. New statements from individuals close to the case, combined with accounts of a volatile relationship, further implicate Lees. After police began questioning him in 2023, Lees went on the run, changing identities and seeking shelter from religious organizations, behavior that could be interpreted as guilt. Lees has pleaded not guilty to the charges. His defense team is expected to argue the following points. No eyewitness saw him commit the crime, and his legal team may try to challenge the credibility of new witness testimonies. His defense may attempt to reinforce the original ruling that Meaghan took her own life. Circumstantial case. While the prosecution has strong circumstantial evidence, the defense may argue that it is not enough to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. What's next? The trial process is expected to be lengthy, with prosecutors and defense attorneys battling over the interpretation of new forensic findings and the reliability of witness testimonies. If convicted, Lees could face life in prison for Meaghan's murder. For Meaghan's family, this trial is the final chapter in their 26-year fight for justice. They remain hopeful that the legal system will finally deliver the accountability they have long sought. So, will justice be served? Only time and the courtroom will tell. Stay tuned as we continue to follow the latest updates in this landmark cold case trial. For over 26 years, Meaghan Rose's case remained a haunting mystery, one that was dismissed as suicide despite the suspicions of those closest to her. But thanks to relentless efforts from her family, investigative breakthroughs, and the dedication of law enforcement, the truth has finally come to light. The arrest of Keith Lees has given this case a new sense of urgency. The legal battle ahead will determine whether justice is truly served, but for Meaghan's loved ones, this is already a victory, a long overdue acknowledgement that she did not simply take her own life, but was the victim of a crime. This case is a powerful reminder of the importance of perseverance in cold case investigations. It also highlights the role of public engagement, as a single tip from a true crime podcast listener played a crucial role in bringing Lees to justice. As we await the outcome of the trial, one thing remains certain. Meaghan Rose's story will not be forgotten. Her name now stands as a symbol of hope for families still seeking justice for their loved ones. Thank you for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more in-depth true crime stories. Let us know in the comments, do you think the evidence will be strong enough for a conviction? See you next time on Crime Story with Camila.
Thanks for watching. For more interesting videos, please subscribe.